change, we've had a change in this country with the party politics.
It's a good segue.
Yeah, with the party politics. So for the first time in a long time, and one of the few times in this country's history, the Labour Party are now back in power.
After 15 years?
I think 14. Yeah.
The last one was Tony Blair.
Gordon Brown.
Gordon Brown was before Tony Blair.
He's after Blair. Blair was 97 to 2007. Brown was 2007 to 2010.
Really? So what did he?
Well, Blair resigned. Not kind of. He was forced out, but he was already thinking of resigning, because he'd done 10 years, and that's enough time to be prime minister. He'd won 3 times. He was like, I don't know if I can win a 4th time.
Fair enough.
So hand off to someone else.
Okay, so since Brown, but even historically speaking, in this country, it's not favourable to the Labour Party.
It's not.
It's not favourable to the Labour Party at all. But we do have our own pseudo two-party system. But one thing I wanted to ask you is, based on your somewhat of an academic background, even though you didn't study politics.
Did study politics.
Wasn't it history?
History and politics were year abroad.
Oh, okay, fair enough. With your historical and political understanding.
But I think both complement each other in different ways.
Yeah.
Very similar.
Why do you think British people voted for the Labour Party? And is there any other reason outside of just not to have the Conservatives in?
I mean, the first one is obvious. Is the obvious, boring answer. Is there is in the world at the moment there is an anti-incumbency thing that is just going on. If you look at like a academic chart or a graph, for the first time in I think 100 years, like in every single Western country, every single Western democracy, the incumbent government has fallen and not survived. Rishi Sunak in the UK. You've got Germany at the moment, the SDP on the verge of defeat. The SDP coalition. Obviously, America, we've just seen with Donald Trump what happened over there. There is Canada looks to fall to the Conservatives from the Liberal Democratic Party very soon.
Trudeau's not working.
No government. I mean, look at France as well. Obviously, Macron isn't up for election again, but he was in the parliamentary elections and his party lost. They lost their ruling coalition. There was a massive anti-incumbency rise that is just genuinely people are blaming whoever is in charge, whether rightfully or wrongfully. And electing other people in their place. It's hard for an incumbent to survive. So I think that is first the big thing. There's a massive in the Western world, a massive anti-establishment, massive anti-incumbency thing going around that just forced the Conservatives out. If Labour was in that position, they probably would have met a similar fate because Biden got elected over Trump, and then he still lost. And Democratic Party still lost anyway. Years later.
No one really likes to stay the so-called status quo.
Yeah, so people just want change, even if they don't. Obviously, even if they don't like. Yeah, people want change, even if they don't clearly know what that change is going to be, or care, or think too deeply about it.
One can't say.
But there is a but.
Because
there is a but.
Somebody could say, "Oh, Liverpool lost the Champions League, but everyone was losing the Premier League."
I've got a but of that as well, which I think there is more to say. Because I think that's one argument, but there's also like 2 more. I'd say. Firstly, the Conservatives are just by the end flogging and incompetent. I mean, they had like 5 prime ministers in 4 prime ministers in 5 years. They had they had David Cameron, then we switched to Theresa May, then Boris Johnson, then Liz Truss, then Rishi Sunak. Liz Truss was a disaster by all accounts. She crashed the economy. Kwasi Kwarteng. Yeah, let's not talk about that guy.
And then that video he got caught talking about, I was the foreign secretary or whatever he was. And he was only there for like 2 days and he was already applying for a new job.
Yeah, so obviously, I don't know if the Conservatives would have survived it. They did a good job. Probably not, but they might have done a lot better had they not if you look at the polling, at least the Conservatives and Labour were neck and neck or slightly above. As soon as Liz Truss came into power, they were never able to get back up to that point ever. So
even just to say then, Rishi Sunak is not necessarily to blame, or he could not have done anything to improve the situation.
Well, I mean, I think he could have. I think Rishi Sunak is still to blame. He made a lot of mistakes, a lot of unpopular ideas. He's not the most.
Don't tell me Eat Out to Help Out, which was to help out the economy, is the reason he failed.
No, I don't think that's the reason he failed. I think the Eat Out to Help Out on that note was a bit silly, the way it was timed, where they had a COVID lockdown, then they Eat Out to Help Out, and then it caused more people to get infected again, and leading to that, really, which was a bit silly. We got a lack of air in here. A little bit. It's hot, isn't it?
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Not long enough.
45 minutes. But yeah, Rich Conservatives made a lot of mistakes in their choice of leaders. And then finally, the thing I'd say too is that Keir Starmer deserves more credit than he gets for the victory because well, if him and Jeremy Corbyn got the same amount of votes. So, question is, why did Corbyn win? Or Corbyn lose, and why did Starmer win?
Well,
Because-
then you would say that's because people wanted the Conservative Party out that badly.
If you look at our electoral system in politics, we have a system called first past the post.
Yeah.
And what that means is elections are decided by a small number of marginal constituencies
The MPs,
across.
number of MPs, and
Yeah,
gets
and-
voted,
yeah.
and the
Rather
majority of
than-
MPs in the party.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Rather than
so-
the vast majority of the country having like a real
And that's
voice.
why people said what's that British party, the
Reform.
racist one? Yeah, they got so many votes, but they only got 4 MPs.
Yeah, so my point being, Keir Starmer courted the types of voters who were in those swing seats. Because usually with Jeremy Corbyn, you can get the same number of votes, but the problem with Corbyn is his votes were all in safe Labour seats.
His
Corbyn
votes
Corbyn
were never-
achieved record results in Leicester, record results in London, record results in
Okay.
Manchester. But what does it matter if they're just, you had MPs like John McDonnell having 50,000 vote majorities. Now their majorities are much less. But it doesn't matter because Starmer was building up small majorities in Conservative-held seats and appealing to Tory switchers who attempted to vote Labour, but need
little
need
bit
a
more
reason to switch. So that's what I mean. I think he deserves more credit because you can easily imagine a scenario where the Conservatives might have lost the election, but Labour gets a minority government. They'd have no majority. They have to rely on other parties for power. Instead, we've got a Labour government with a massive 100+ majority, able to do whatever it wants. So that's a big difference from a hung parliament where Labour might have Keir Starmer as Prime Minister, but that might be the only thing they have. They don't have any party to actually make any difference in Parliament. They have to negotiate. They have to haggle.
Yeah.
They might have to- same thing happened in the election.
But can you really say that isn't because people wanted the Conservative Party so badly that can you really say that's what Sir Keir Starmer did?
Yeah, and also that, at the end of the day, the thing is, governments have to lose elections first, and people have to look at, there was an interesting poll done that puts that more than anything else is, there was a poll that said, how would you feel if the Conservatives won an election again? I think 80% of people were would feel horrible about it. How many people would feel bad if Labour won? It's 20%. Keir Starmer made the Labour Party look safe. A lot of people were turned off by Jeremy Corbyn, rightfully or wrongfully,
by
Jeremy
a little
Corbyn.
bit too
Media
extreme.
perceptions, Corbyn's own mistakes, whatever it is. Starmer made Labour Party appeal to my neighbour, my mum's house, is a Tory, and you know what? She voted Labour for the first time ever, not even under Blair.
Because he was convincing them.
Yeah, and and my mum lives in a marginal constituency that needed the Labour voters to switch, otherwise they couldn't win. So
I wanted to ask you. I saw this Rishi Sunak edit the other day.
it's not the Minecraft edits either.
No, it's this one. If you take a look at that, and you told me that.
Is it tax rises?
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to know who made this because you've actually made Rishi Sunak look cool. I don't know that was possible.
That's what the comment said.
I need to see this.
Turns out editing can fix anything. Because
Who knows?
of course, Rishi Sunak doesn't answer the question of all the bad things he did in that.
But is he right about that? Because with this new tax thing that he brought in, has it made things better or worse? But I haven't looked into it. Okay, I won't pretend. I think it's mainly aimed at businesses.
Well, I was going to say,
or somewhat wealthy people, and not necessarily so much people who are working. But don't those people bring more to the economy than average Joe who works a 9 to 5? Don't the businesses need to continue to grow and prosper for the economy to do well?
well, I suppose you could say that, but you could also say our economies. I mean, here's the thing: the argument, because I have a lot of people come back, and the big argument against all this is, national insurance is going to lead to a stagnated economy, lack of pay rises for people, all that stuff. But here's the thing: the economy's crap anyway. We have an economy that is not growing. GDP growth has never recovered from the financial crisis. It's way below. It's terrible. We're terrible at productivity. Wages have stagnated for about 15, 16, 17 years now. You know what? Labour is offering an alternative where they're investing more into public services to try and do that instead. Instead of tax cuts, it's taxes up. But let's try and fix schools, hospitals, fix the foundations of the economy. I think they deserve a fair shot to try something different because the last 14 years have been tax cuts, low taxes, and you know what? Clearly that hasn't worked.
Britain's not a country that's known for low taxes.
We're slow taxes compared to Europe in a lot of cases. You know, if you look at Europe, our taxes are very low. We have one of the lowest the tax rates in Europe by comparison. The problem being, of course, that we then have these problems where unlike Europe, our public services don't get funded enough, and then you run into the problem having to raise taxes, and it creates problems. But in comparison to Europe, we definitely do.
Fair enough. I guess, and I didn't even vote, and I'm old enough to vote. I didn't even vote, so I can't really
Oh
compare.
no, you should have voted.
I think it was something to do with, sorry, I live in London, so I would have had to sort things beforehand that I wasn't willing to sort. But I guess one thing I've always thought, and I've recently realised about politics, is for a politician, Prime Minister, President, whatever, to make a big change, it requires a lot of effort that they can't necessarily even do in 1 term or 2 terms, or they might not even be able to do within their term.
Yeah, well, that's the taxes thing again. To reduce tax rises to pay off, we're going to have to wait probably 2 terms to find out.
Exactly. So it's going to take a while. If they do make positive change, it's going to take a while for those changes to be impacted. They're going to be vilified and hated all the while. Then the next second or third politician will come in, and during their term, when the good changes of the previous politician have started to take effect, they'll start to say, oh, this is my doing, etc., etc. So can people really know whether or not Rishi Sunak's changes have made any improvement, or whether Sir Keir Starmer's changes will make any improvement?
Don't really often think about the previous politician who just come and put their policies.
Well, yeah, the question is, like, firstly, will people consider it? Probably not. Like, they might do. If it's Labour directly going into Labour, then yes. But often if it does a change in government, people usually expect kind of ground zero, the government can, you know. But yeah, like, I think people can tell, because at the end of the day, I mean, I believe if Labour is successful, well, then we'll know. In 5 years' time, if waiting lists have gone down, if people feel like access to healthcare is easier, then they'll have succeeded. But if people feel like things are exactly the same as they were, then they will have failed. And that's a 2-pronged process. You've actually got to make the practical change, but maybe the most important one, which is the one probably Biden failed to do, and the one the Blair government also probably failed to do, to make people feel it. Because there was a big difference where, one of the interesting things I ever read was a book on public polling of how people perceive things. So in the Blair government, for all the massive faults and problems, corruption, blah, 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 that happened in there, one of the things they did, NHS waiting times